Hello and welcome to FinextraTV. I'm Hannah Wallace, and joining us in our virtual studio today is Will Moroney, CRO at Temenos, and we're going to be discussing core modernisation. Will, it's great to have you join us in the virtual studio.
Hi Hannah, nice to be here.
Great to have you, and of course we've spoken about core modernisation before. However, it'd be great if you could bring us up to date and tell us what is really front of mind for bank leaders today.
I think bank leaders are facing a perfect storm, and it's a perfect storm of challenges and also opportunities. Now, this isn't something new for our banking community. Our banking community have been under pressure and modernizing under pressure for decades because of all of the different things that have been changing with regards to how banks interact with their customers and how they service their customers. But I think there's three things that we're hearing that are top of mind for banking leaders. Number one is that they're continuing their modernization journeys, and they're continuing these journeys now under more pressure than ever before. So different junctures in their journey with their processes and systems and people have had different levels of pressure on our banking leaders. For example, when they went 24/7 and opened up their banking systems to people on iPhones to be able to check their balances at any time, that put pressure on. But now there's an increased level of pressure, and that's coming with our requirement in the banking community to be AI ready. So the modernization under pressure is ever constant at banks. It's now been ramped up because there's an expectation, and it's a new expectation from banking customers, from the employees of banks, and also very much from the shareholders of banks. This new era of artificial intelligence is going to bring something new. The customers are expecting that they will be getting a higher level of service, faster turnaround, quicker decisions. Banking employees want to use new technologies to be able to do things more efficiently, faster for their customers. And finally, of course, shareholders are looking to see how can we automate and how can we make these enterprises more profitable. So pressure is coming on the boards and the senior leadership of banks to fulfill the expectations of these three different stakeholders that are coming from what they're reading and hearing about AI. And then the third thing that we hear quite a lot of is impact and immediate impact. And I think this comes from the experience that our banking community have had in the last hyper cycle .com back in late 90s, early 2000s, where sometimes it took a long time to materialize this new technologies that were coming to bear. Well, now they've learned from that, and they want to see impact not in years, but in quarters, and especially with the renewed pressure that's coming from their stakeholders. So these are the three main things we hear quite a lot from banking leaders right now.
Well, thank you for setting the scene. It's really interesting to hear how new pressures have changed priorities for bank leaders. Off the back of that, can you tell us, are you seeing a shift then in how banks are approaching core modernisation in order to accelerate innovation, but also unlock growth?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a shift, Hannah. I think there's a few things that we're noticing in the market. Banks have been modernizing for decades now, and what really started to happen in the 90s pre-Y2K was that it's actually the smaller banks who moved first. And they went with packaged, upgradable, and newer, modern core banking solutions. So if you think of tier 5, tier 4, up into tier 3, this has been very, very active for a number of decades. And with that, we've had the tier 1 banks really, modernize in a different way, whereas they've kept a huge number of their older legacy technologies and provided solutions around them and on top of them to enable them in the new digital age. What we're finding now is that tier 1s are seriously looking at actually replacing the legacy. Now, of course, they can't do it like a tier 3, 4, 5 big bang approach. They've got to look at very careful progressive modernization, taking more modular approach, replacing that legacy actually piece by piece with an ecosystem of solutions that they're going to manage. So what we're seeing, especially in tier 1, tier 2 space, is that the full core replacement to come off legacy is definitely there in their plan now. The way they're going about it is to progressive modernization. There's also another element, and that is that the surround and extend, retaining their existing core and continuing to invest in point solution. This is also ongoing, and this is happening in a couple of key areas. We were at Sideboss this week. Payments and financial crime mitigation are two major areas of modernization in tier 1 and tier 2 banks right now, where they are looking for package solutions, cloud solutions to enhance what they're doing with their own core, with their own cores in-house right now. Across all these strategies, what we're finding is a consistent demand for trusted ecosystem of partners. These are long-term, multi-decade partners banks looking to onboard and to use within their technology stack. And that's where we're seeing an increased level of activity right now.
Well, thank you for walking us through that shift and what the response has been as well. Of course, you're CRO at Temenos, so you're in a great position to walk us through how you're adapting to these evolving market dynamics that we're seeing.
Exactly. I guess let me explain what the CRO organization does at Temenos. We are effectively responsible for every single touch point in the customer journey, everywhere from field marketing to sales to delivery, partner delivery, customer success, and local support. So every single touch point a customer has with Temenos is with somebody within the CRO organization. So we focus on a number of things. I think number one focus for us is that we work to retain our market leadership position. We are, again, number one for core systems in the IBS League table this year. Actually, not just number one for core systems, but number one in 13 other categories. That's really important for us and for our customers, so they know they're dealing with a trusted partner that has that sort of growth on a year-on-year basis. As we keep adding more customers, more banks to our portfolio, that means we have to keep enhancing our solutions, keeping them up to date and valid, and that's what our banks want to see. With that, then we support well over 1,000 customers in their core systems geographically from tier 1 to tier 5, all different types of banks. So we have to be able to execute at scale. And in the first half of 2025 alone, we supported over 150 of our customers in go lives globally with our products. These new implementations were upgrades and new go lives of all legacy solutions that we've been brought in to replace. But 150 go lives in 6 months is real execution of scale. And our customers, they want to see that. They want to know, just like you would if you went to the dentist, you want to know the dentist is doing this every day. It's not something that they do once or twice a year. And then finally, speed and excellence is a big model that we use internally. It's not just about great product quality, but how quickly we can deliver value to our customers by getting our technologies deployed and usable within our customer sites as quickly as possible. So all encompassing, that's what the CRO organization does, and that's what we work to do with our customers on a daily basis.
I'm hearing speed, excellence, and scale. Will, thank you so much for bringing us up to date with the core modernization landscape and telling us about what Temenos is doing in this space. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
You're very welcome. Great to see you again, Hannah.